Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again, another Mishmash Monday. Thought I would start off today with a little bit of a story, kind of a funny story. When I was a kid, I went to Catholic school, and I spent 12 years in Catholic school. It was pretty strict back then. It was kind of very strict back then. Not as strict as it was when my mom went, but it was pretty strict. In fact, it was so strict, I remember when I was in the Marine Corps, and one of the drill instructors got in my face and was screaming at me for a few minutes, as they always do. And then as he walked away, one of my friends said, were you scared? And I said, scared? I said, I went to Catholic school for 12 years. Sister Vianney would eat him for lunch. So every year we had to take a photograph, a class picture, and all the homerooms would get together and take a picture, and they would read you the riot act. They'd say, listen, make sure your uniforms are squared away, and make sure you had haircuts. This was the 70s. You know, haircuts were far and few between, but you had to have your hair cut, and everybody had to look prim and proper and take the picture. So here it is. We took the picture. Now, even though I was in a different homeroom, this was all part of my class, and you could see there's 38 adorable angels here. Then a couple weeks later, you would receive a portfolio, you know, if you want to buy one or two, how many you want to purchase, and everybody got the pictures of their class picture. And I don't know who it was that noticed it, but all of a sudden, if you looked real close at Peter sitting in the front row, second guy over, it's like, what is Peter doing? And let me show you what Peter was doing. And there's Peter, and his tie's all straight. Is he holding some? What's in his hands? Is what? Don't! Now, I still find that funny today, because for Peter, I guess he was what they call a rebel back then, you know, and needless to say, Peter disappeared after that, and we often have, I had nightmares of Sister Vianney fast roping down the side of the school, and busting through a window and taking Peter out. She was in her camouflaged nunnery outfit. We never heard from Peter again, and I often wonder whatever happened to that kid. And that's why I learned to pretty much walk straight after that. So, let's get started with today's mishmash. Now, my buddy Dennis Wider, who's a subscriber, friend of the show, sent this in, thought it might be of interest to us, and it is very interesting. This is a mechanics drill set. It's a three-piece set, and you can see here it's 1/16 on top. We have over here we have 1/8, and here we have a 3/16 inch drill bit. But what's so interesting about this is NOS, you know, it was never used. But if you look down here in the lower corner, or right here, you'll see made in occupied Japan. Occupied Japan. Now, what makes that so interesting is that all products coming out of Japan, you remember right after the war, the United States was helping to rebuild Japan. And what's interesting, and a lot of people don't realize, is Russia and the United States were rebuilding Germany. But Russia had no part in Japan, so it was just the U.S. Helping Japan rebuild. And with these drill bits, the occupied Japan, that was from 1947 to 1952. Those 5 years, that's everything within those 5 years said occupied Japan, made in occupied Japan. So anytime you see a tool or anything that comes from there, those are the 5 years that they were producing, that they were allowed to use that occupied Japan. So I thought that was pretty interesting, because you don't usually see too many NOS tools come from that time. So thanks very much for that, Dennis. It's a really interesting set. Next up, we have a NOS pair of Proto, which you don't usually see. Let's check. Okay, the next pair of pliers, we're going to look at these Protos. Now, if you want to talk about company history it's confusing, you look up Proto. Proto started off as Plum. Plum started off as PLOMB, not to be confused with PLUMB, which they had a big court battle. It goes on, and it's just a mishmash of manufacturers to get to this point. Proto, the first tools you start seeing about Proto was like 1949. Again, this came from the Plum PLOMB tool company. And by 1964, Ingersoll Rand bought them out. So these pliers date back to because you can see here, it says an Ingersoll Rand company. So this is from 64. It could be anywhere up to the 80s, when in 1984, Stanley picked them up and bought the company. But here is a pair of NOS, and you can see Proto, and that's 238G. And these are professional, you know, what. But remember, we just did a pair of these parrot beak pliers. And the reason I'm showing you these are new old stock. And when you're looking at new old stock, remember when you're trying to restore something and you say, I try and do it, you know, I do it for my tastes. But if you were trying to do it back to the original, I want you to look at some of the, now again, it varies by year because it's depending on their manufacturing at the time or how much, you know, time they had to spend on each pair of pliers. You see a little forging lines down here. They didn't put too much attention over here, but you could see over here they hit it with the belt real quick, so you could see, and you could see the grain. You see the grain of the belt, and you can see it over here. You can see it's a pretty coarse belt. You know, it wasn't like a full polish like we do, but that is new old stock. And then they put these red grips on. I don't know if they're a dipped grip or placed up. They look like almost like a dip grip. And this is what the finish looks like from the factory. So keep that in mind when you're doing your restorations, whether or not you want to take it to this or better. Again, if you want to take it to a better restoration, you know, that's not considered a restoration. That's, you know, what we do. We just like to fool around. Anyway, this is a NOS Proto parrot beak pliers, almost similar to ones we just did a couple weeks ago. Next up, a good friend of the show, Anthony Perello from Texas, sent in this nice tool lot. And Anthony is, you know, he was interested about this wrench. He contacted me, you know, about the Plum wrench. And you know, because he knows that the history of this is, like we were talking about with Plum, is very interesting. So, and this is an unusual one because you don't usually see this type. A lot of them had pebble finish in it, and so it's a little bit of a different one. And we're going to do a quick restoration on this and see what we can do. But one of the funny things here, you can see now, see the PLOMB. Now you see that O is almost shaped like a, you know, I think that Plum did that because I think they were a little upset about losing the case, about not being able to use the Plum name. He made the PLO look like a U almost with that open top. And, you know, a lot of people, what's so confusing about this, if you even look on eBay and you look up PLUMB and PLOMB, you'll find tools that aren't even cross-listed. So let's get working on this. Now here we are at a half post-wire brush evaluation, and I did this just to show you the difference of just what a wire brush can do. Here's the before. You could see the rust and the scale, and look at just the after with just a wire brush. And look at the lettering, how nice it comes out. And that's all you need really, is a wire brush to get your tools. Look at that. It's just beautiful. And again, before you could see, but we'll finish it up. And then we'll take it to the next step, which we like to do. And remember the edge here. See this edge? That's a pretty sharp edge. I'd like to relieve that just a little bit, but not change the profile of the wrench. Okay, here we are at ready for the belt sander. Now, if you look, this is the reason that we tool manufacturers have gone away. This is a sharp edge. You see that? That's no good, and I'll show you why. This is what happens. You see what happens here? You get dings, you get dents, you get chips. It's not a good idea, ever. That's way too sharp. But, you know, again, this was early tool making. And you see later on, you see how nice this edge is. It's how relieved and soft it is. That's a much better production than this here. But, again, this was an early model. So we're just going to relieve it a little bit so that it's a usable wrench for us. Now you know my favorite part. Remember what the wrench looked like before we started. And we are calling this wrench done. Look how nice this came out. We did a full mirror polish on the whole wrench. So it's really, not only does the mirror polish or the polishing do a good job in making the wrench look good, but it really protects it well. If you know, nothing can bead up on here. This will never rust under normal conditions. Softened the edge. You can see here the edge is no longer a sharp edge that would hurt when you gripped it. Polished out all the edges here. Didn't touch any of the inside of the wrench because obviously I don't want to change the size, but yeah, it came out really nice. You can see here it's the 3045 Plum, and kept all the lettering. It was difficult because there was a lot of hard forge marks, and it is a hard wrench to deal with when you're dealing with hardened steel. But Nice tribute to the Plum tool company, which no longer exists. And want to thank Anthony again from Texas for sending this. And thank all of you for watching. I hope you all have a nice day. Take care. Bye-bye.